Okay, it is now 1 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and kick things off because we do have such a packed agenda. It looks like all of our speakers have joined us. Um, so we'll be sure to share any links that are shared at the beginning of our presentation throughout in case anyone is joining late and misses them in the chat. But in the meantime, welcome to the CCSQ Data and Analytics December Town Hall. So just a couple of administrative announcements before we get started. Welcome. And for those who are new, these calls are designed to provide us with updates, announcements, and trading demos related to the CDR, SaaS via Databricks, and more. So please make sure to stay muted during our call today. We want to make sure we're minimizing distractions for our presenters. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. We are hoping to have a Q&A portion at the end of our call, but because we do have so many items on our agenda today and a couple demos, if we don't have time to get to those questions, we'll be sure to get them and their answers published in our Q&A section in the CCSQ DNA portal. Which brings us to, we are recording today's call and all meeting materials, including slides, the recording, and then that Q&A as well, whether we get them answered in person today, or I guess virtually today or not, they will be published there. So with that, let's go ahead and cover our agenda. Oh, and then these were our administrative reminders. So for today's agenda, the first item is new data available in the CDR. Next, we're going to be moving over to the monthly satisfaction survey review. And then third, we have introduction to available Databricks training resources in the CDR. And then we'll be closing out today with using the CDR Databricks environment. So next, I'm going to be passing things over to John to kick things off for us today and give us a little bit more information about our topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Frederick. I'm a product owner over on the iKeys team. I work specifically with the data warehousing and the ETL pipelines that move data from the iKeys source system into the final bring your own data, BYOD tables that are available in Databricks. Next slide, please. So we have currently moved a bunch of data sets already into Databricks. Some people might be already familiar with the data sets that were previously there under the assessment_IKeys schema. But for those of you who aren't familiar with those data sets, we have actually created a bunch of different schemas, each related to their individual pack care settings or to the legacy keys S&C data that was available. So the data that's currently available, and this is available through, as it says right here, if you have your DUA data file descriptions on hand, you'll be able to find these particular data sets. There is MDS data, and also these data sets include both like reporting tables, which would be like the assessment fed tables, as well as QRP tables for the quality measures and reporting data that's available. So there's MDS data that's currently there available. That's in its own schema. IRF, LTEC, HHA, all of those are all in their own schemas. They used to be all combined under the assessment_IKeys schema. They have been since separated so that if you're looking under the HHA schema, that's the only data that you'll see there. It makes it a lot easier to find the appropriate tables that you're looking for. And then for the keys, legacy S&C tables, these would be Keys Casper and Keys Casper X. You can see the acronyms there, so you'll know what they stand for. But these data sets are all available currently through Databricks, and if you have your DUA, then you'll be able to access them. And then coming soon, by the end of December, we will actually also have iKeys S&C data. So this would be the data that is not necessarily Casper related, but it's along the same lines. But if you can go to the next slide, it'll tell you which schemas will soon be available as well. These ones would be survey, letters, regulation, intakes, which are the complete data, location enforcement, and then also provider data will also be available as well. So we didn't list that one separately, but that one will be there as well. Each one of these data sets will have an accompanying data dictionary that will be provided as well, so that you'll be able to see not just the schema and the table, but also the column data and what it represents. So we aim to have all of this data available by the end of December, hopefully very, very soon. And then we don't have a slide for it, but going into 2025, we'll be having some other data for iKeys S&C that will be available, that will be added in. It'll include forms data as well as items for LTCSP for parties that need to have LTCSP data in hand. We will also be migrating some other legacy keys data into the BYOD format. Each one of those schemas will be available. We don't have timelines on those yet, but they'll be coming in 2025 in the first part of the year. If you have any questions about this, obviously there's contact information down below. We're always open and willing to address any comments, especially on the changes or concerns about the data sets. And we look forward to everyone getting in and utilizing them and having a grand old time. And that's really all I had to say. I don't know if there's, I think you said you wanted to hold Q&A until the very end. So if there are any questions about this, I'm happy to stick around to the end.
Thanks so much, John.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, we are going to be moving over to Chandria with the monthly satisfaction survey review.
Good afternoon. I'm Chandria Scott with the CCSQ Data and Analytics team. I'm the training specialist, and I'll be going over the October and November monthly satisfaction survey results with you. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is based on 7 responses for the October satisfaction. 71% of users said they were satisfied with the performance and the uptime of the CCSQ data and analytics environment. And that is a 29% decrease from the September rates. And then there were 57% of users who are satisfied with the help desk support of the data and analytics environment, and that is a 13% decrease from September. And then we have 71% of users are satisfied with the resources that are available within the data and analytics. And that is a 19% decrease from September. And again, that is based on 7 responses. All right, next slide. All right, so some of the positive praise and feedback that we pulled out from the surveys. So some of that was no complaints with the Databricks environment, and people felt like they were able to getting help and getting their issues resolved in time. And then good reviews on the training, town hall, the office hours materials, and they felt that there was help and guidance there, and that the resources and demo sessions have been helpful. Next slide. All right, and then some suggestions and improvements. There weren't any for the CCSQ environment, but for the help desk, one of the suggestions improvements was to streamline the process of providing the ticket information, and also for the training material. With the push to use Databricks and QuickSight, someone suggested that we should have a clear process. Okay, and the next slide. All right, and for the November satisfaction, and this is based on 9 responses. So 80% of users are satisfied with the performance and uptime of the CCSQ data and analytics environment, and that is a 9% increase from October. And 78% of users are satisfied with the help desk support for the data and analytics environment, which is a 21% increase from October. And 100% of users are satisfied with the resources that are available from the data and analytics environment. And that is a 29% increase from October. Next slide. All right, and some of the positive praise and feedback. Databricks is amazing. So many options for language and capabilities. I appreciate the AI assistant, as it really helps with coding in Python in particular, and something that they're not as familiar with, and it also helped brush up on SQL and felt it was seamless. Generally found it was pretty good, and then they are also enjoying the number of available tools in Databricks, including the Databricks Assistant and the CCSQ resources that are related to Databricks. So positive feedback on that. Next slide. And then no suggestions or improvements for the CCSQ environment, but for the help desk, more opportunities for live chatting with the help desk is a suggested improvement, and also for CCSQ to continue to provide examples for code and documentation on the databases. And that is all for the October and November satisfaction results. We'll turn it back over to Julia.
Thanks, Andrea. Okay, so this month, this would be covering December, and I know we're a hair early this month. We do have our town hall a little bit early because of the holidays, but given that our last one was also mid-November because of data camp, kind of think of this as that span between them. So this survey helps us know how we can improve your experience within the CCSQ DNA environment and community. The results will be used to improve our tools, trainings, and offerings. Just a quick note, Laura is going to be sending out the survey link here momentarily. She just shared it in the Zoom chat. We really encourage you to give us your feedback. As you can see, some of months our results are a little bit low with only a few people. So obviously we can't make great improvements if we're not hearing from people. So please make sure you're giving us that feedback so we can pass that along and make those changes or keep the things you love. So the survey link has been shared. We encourage you to take the survey as soon as our meeting ends, and it will remain open through the end of the day today. Please only submit a survey if you're a user within our CCSQ DNA environment. And as a reminder, the survey is anonymous, but if you provide your contact information for any specific questions or follow-up you need, then we're able to do that. So just make sure that if you do need us to reach out, that you do provide that information. Okay, so with that, I'm going to be turning things over to Oren at this point for introduction to available Databricks training resources within the CDR.
Well, thank you. So if you can stop sharing so I can share, that would be
Sure thing.
excellent. So thank you for coming this afternoon. We have been working on creating Databricks trainings for about the last 6 months or so in detail. So I wanted to just go over some of the trainings that we have available so we can you can see what's actually there. So that way we can keep track. 'Cause I know after we've done 6 months of in-depth training, we've done about a year of data camp. So I just wanted to go over that. And we're going to cover the stuff that's in the portal. And we're going to talk about the SaaS transitions resources. We're going to talk about data camp demos and training sessions, and also about future plans. So present resources. So the first thing to keep in mind is resources in the portal itself. And if we go to this location, you can see that there are KB articles. And that location is right here. And you can see we have got access. You can see we have 38 training articles that talk about things that questions that came up about Databricks, and that things that you might learn might help you work in our environment. If you have questions, you can go there. We also have a FAQ session. And here we have basic answers to questions that come up. And then here we have our primary SaaS transition resources page. And here we talk about Q&As. So we have Q&As split up by different sections. We have links to data camps and demos and office hour presentations. We have here things that we published about office hour topic, and that includes the notebook. It includes the presentations themselves, and anything else that may have come up, any questions or answers. And then we have related articles, and these lead to the data camps that we had worked on. And so that takes us to data camp. So the location of data camp, that is in the data camp thing, that is going to be right here. And basically, if you go to CDR PDAQ dash, you will, and go to data camp, you will see them. I do have the link in the PowerPoint, and the link should be in the chat, so you can go there. But as you can see, we've completed 3 data camps that had at least one presentation focused on Databricks, and there have been 12 so far. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have covered a lot of topics in these data camps. In the fall 2024 one, we covered Introduction to Databricks, which is basically just an intro to things how Databricks works and things you need to know to work in our environment. We've talked about Bamboo Lib, and that is a low-code pandas library that lets you analyze data. We've done a number of discussions talking about basic Python resources. We have talked about ways to convert base S to Python. We have done sessions about how to import and export to S3, plus talking about DB utils. And this is basically all your data is stored in an S3 workbench. So this is how to interact with that S3 workbench by importing and exporting data, and also by using DB utils to see what's there and to delete things, to be able to move things, to mount drives and stuff like that. We've had a number of lectures talking about data frames, and data frames is Python's version of the data set. So somewhat similar to data set. We have in these lectures, we do talk about the difference between data frames and data sets, but reasonably this close to the same idea. We've done a number of data camp discussions about visualization and how you can create them. We've talked about Spark SQL in our data camp and how you can create SQL queries. We've talked about looks and dictionaries, and those come up in Python. Those are ways to store things. We've discussed how you can use a Databricks assistant. In this latest data camp, Eric gave a great presentation about CDR medical claims and how you can actually use the medical claims in our environment. And then we've done a number of things on our resources. And I encourage you, we can't go into all the data camp stuff in detail, but I encourage you to take a look and look at those areas and see if there's something you need that we might have actually covered it. The next thing we have are demos. And demos are located here. You can see we have about 12 of them. Demos are basically small bits of code that are created to solve a problem that comes up, like something that's happening, or to discuss a new functionality. For example, one of our demos is about the Starfang stats and Excel libraries, and those are used to read stats and BDAT files. And also when we had issues with BBBFS and with get command stuff, we created a demo for that. And these are some of the things that you can have there. These are some of them. We have some about talking about how to mount workbenches in Databricks. And these are primarily things that come up when we see issues happening in our Databricks environment. We get a lot of questions on help desk. These demos are usually there to help provide answers for those questions we see happening a lot. And then the primary thing we have are office hour presentations. And our office hour presentations, so far we have 12 of them. And you can see they're located here. And yep, again, the presentation, the link should be It's gonna be in the demo. It's gonna be in this PowerPoint. It should be in the chat also. But basically, we've had 12 of them. The first one was a basic introduction to Databricks, discussion of notebook clusters, catalogs, and workflows. And it's really good to let you get an idea of how Databricks works. For the second one, we talked about data file management. And basically, we discussed how data is stored in the CDR. And we talked about how you can use DB utils to view directories, copy files, remove files, and mount workbenches. And basically, this one is really important to understand how to function in the Databricks environment, because you need to understand how to mount workbenches if you want to basically do a lot of things. There's a lot of things that require you to get your workbenches, because that's where your data is stored. In lesson 3, we did a basic introduction to Spark data frames and how they're different than static data sets. And in lesson 4, we did an introduction to Databricks and Spark SQL, including Windows functions. And we talked about how to import and export data in S3 and how to create functions in config files. And then in lesson 5, we talked more about Spark data frames and how to do column operations, data selections, organizing and combining data, and dealing with data issues. And we talked about eager first lazy execution. In lesson number 6, we talked about data frames in R. And in lesson number 7, we went into a more in-depth discussion about doing Windows functions in Spark. In lesson number 8, we went into detail about how to use logging in Python and R. And the great thing about this is that people are noting that Databricks doesn't have a great logging functionality. It's good in the sense that it tells you what's happening in the notebook, but if you want to actually download a log, it doesn't really do that. And to do that, you need to be able to use the logging module. And this talks about how you can do it and how you can take those logs and you can save them to files. In lesson number 9, we discussed Databricks widgets, and we discussed how to use Databricks to create reports in Excel. There's a lot about how to migrate stuff from Databricks to Excel in there. So if you are working in Excel, I encourage you to check it out. In lesson 10, we discussed how to use the Databricks' built-in visualization and data profiling tools. And we also did a lot about Plotly. Plotly is visualization, and we show you like how you can create a lot of stuff with that. Lesson number 11 is about BambooLib, which we talked about earlier. And then lesson number 12 is a discussion about Spark logs. And this brings us to future plans. So going forward, we're going to continue our Assess by a Transition Office Hour presentation. And these are presentations that are about in-depth, and they're about an hour long, and they're topics determined by community input and our team. And for these topics, we are going to usually be creating notebooks, and they'll be shared with the community. And these presentations, they're also going to be recorded and shared to the CMS YouTube channel. So if you miss a presentation and you want to hear it, no worries, just wait a few weeks. It will be on the CMS YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find it there. Another new thing that we're going to be doing is Lunch and Learn. These are going to be 30-minute sessions during lunch, and they're designed to either explain something at a high level or to explain a single point in depth. And it's designed to be a bit less intense than our office hour presentations, because it's going to be much shorter. And for these, again, also, the notebooks and other materials are going to be created for these, and they'll be shared with the community. And where you can find them, at the moment, they are at our public area in the CRPSA public. And you can see right there, we have a folder for our town hall presentations. We have Lunch and Learn, and we're also going to have interactive sessions there. Another thing we are creating that is new is interactive sessions. And these are sessions where basically we create exercises for you guys to solve. And in these sessions, audience participation and questions are encouraged. And we will have resources in the breakout room to either provide hints about questions you may have, or to discuss topics that the exercises are based on in case you want to go into details. And the way it's going to work is we'll give you a bunch of time to work on the exercises yourselves. And at the end of the exercises, we're going to provide answers and we will record them and we'll show how to solve these things, these exercises. And if you have any questions about the exercise, we will answer them. And again, that the notebooks for those will be in that same area that we just showed you. One thing that we are working on creating are community Q&As. And these sessions are going to be based on questions we get from the community, from help desk tickets, transition surveys, session surveys, anywhere that we see questions. And the primary goal is we're going to just like try and answer basic questions, but there may be cases where we'll go in depth about a certain topic. Like we get a lot of questions about a certain topic, we may focus in on that. And yeah, the plans to design these are still in process, so they'll be ready soon. And then another thing we are creating is a CDR PSA community schema. And basically this schema is going to be in the Databricks catalog. It is going to be available to everybody in the community that has access to Databricks. And it's going to be where we keep data sets that we use in our training materials. And the idea is we're going to have the schema, you'll have data there, and you'll be able to practice and complete any exercise that we demonstrate, or you'll be able to look over the stuff that we do in our office hours or in our town halls. But the idea is when we get this completed, you'll be able to access whatever we were working on. You can like try things out yourself. And then there's community suggestions. Because all of these training sessions, they are meant to help the community convert your code from CS to Databricks. They're meant to help improve your Databricks knowledge. And we really want to work with you to make sure these sessions are as valuable as they could be. We want to make sure we're getting the right thing. So any ideas or suggestions that you guys have are encouraged. Because really, we're here to help you. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Oren. Okay, so at this point, we are going to be moving to using the CDR Databricks environment. So I'm going to be passing things over to Lit at this point.
Hey, Julia, there was a question here when Oren was presenting. Do we want to talk about it now or later?
Oren, what would you prefer? Do you want to handle all Q&A at the end, or do you want to do the one that might have been specific to your content now?
Yeah, let's do it at the end.
Okay,
All right. Sounds good. All right, I'll take over the screen share here. Thank you, Julia. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. All right. I'll get started. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Lalit Nukla. I'm a staff data scientist with eSimplicity, part of the user services team. I wanted to present about, kind of give a high-level introduction to Databricks, and this might serve as a refresher to some, and this might be new material for a lot of folks whose organization's getting onboarded. Oren just presented all the material that we have that will help you get started and get up to speed with using Databricks environment. And this is just kind of give you a high level overview. What I really wanted to talk about today is why Databricks? Why do we want to use it? What does it actually support? What are the core aspects of Databricks? We will get into, touch upon workspace, catalogs, what does computes do? Dashboarding in terms of what SQL dashboards are. We'll talk about notebooks, touch upon workflows, talk about how libraries can be used within Databricks. And we'll be happy to take any questions that you have. To get started, Databricks it's a cloud-based unified analytics platform that is supposed to simplify this complex data engineering task, data science modeling that you have to do, and design and implement analytics workflow. The way it does this thing is by combining tasks of data ingestion, data processing, and seamlessly transitioning between the data preparation, the modeling, deployment, advanced analytics that you want to create, all within one single platform. This Databricks was founded by creators of Apache Spark project, and they are also active contributors in Delta Lake and MLflow projects. So what that actually ends up being advantageous is it provides a very optimized version of Spark and all these other tools that makes it easier for us to use this platform and manage it. Then, given that it's built on these open source technologies, what it actually does is Databricks can integrate with these other existing data ecosystems that are out there. Now, what Databricks actually support in terms of that is it has a catalog that actually provides you an interface where to access the data assets within your organizations, the metadata to view all of these things, allow you to query the data, and also be able to manage data assets that are available across different sources and are in various formats. Now, Databricks actually gives you sort of a cluster compute, which means that you can actually use multiple machines that can actually parallelize the work that you're doing. The way it does that is that there is a SQL warehouse cluster, there is a job cluster, and then there's all-purpose clusters, which we will get into what each one actually means here. Now, Databricks has a good support for SQL editor, where if you just want to work with SQL queries, manipulate the data, transform the data, just using SQL queries, you can do that. In addition to that, the main workhorse, in my opinion, in Databricks is the notebooks. What notebooks does is that it provides you one single place to do your documentation, write your code, visualize your output, share all of these seamlessly within your organization or with somebody to collaborate. On top of that, it gives us support for multiple programming languages like Python, R, Scala, and SQL. You can mix all of these programming languages, code written in all of this into one single notebook. It's optimized for speed, it's easy to use, and it's very helpful. There is a built-in version control support within Databricks, as well as you can connect to your GitHub repo if you have that option, and all the notebooks can be backed up into your GitHub repo. Databricks has the ability to read and write from different cloud storage solutions, such as Amazon's S3, Azure, and stuff like that. Databricks also has dashboards integrated into their platform. So once you are done with your code, you want to look at the data, you can interactively present this data to your shareholders. Now let's get into what some core aspects of Databricks is. Let's talk about what Databricks Workspace is. Workspace is actually a folder structure within Databricks is provided for each users and their groups. Files that are stored within these folders can actually be shared with your team members. That helps you to collaborate on the tasks that you're performing. I will highly recommend not to share your files with everybody. Just be cognizant about with whom you're sharing your coding artifacts. Only code artifacts should sit within these workspaces. we'll get into what that actually means in a bit here. What we also recommend is that you have your local folder, do your development, any exploratory analysis, and everything that needs to be done. And once you're ready, move your notebooks into your team's folder. And if your organization actually allows and provides you the GitHub repo, back it up onto GitHub repo. You can find more information, as Oren has just presented, in lesson 1 of our office hours. This goes, our team goes into much more detail on how to go about doing that. Now we talk about workspaces and workbench. People who come from the SaaS background, for them, workspace and workbench is synonymous. But in our implementation of this Databricks, it's a little bit different. When we say workbench, we are speaking about S3 locations, S3 workbenches. And what Databricks workspace is where you can actually write your code. These two point to two very different locations. Again, the ideal practice is to make sure that your data artifacts are stored in AWS S3 workbenches. Again, more information on and more details, as Oren presented, can be found in our office hours here. Some of the best practices we suggest is make sure that only your code artifacts and program files are within the Databricks workspace. All the data that you're going to access, intermediate data outputs that you're going to create, all the final data outputs should be stored in the S3 locations or into the CDR schema. Again, initial code development, do it in the workspace. Once you're ready, move it to the org workspace. And if the organization has GitHub, then add the Databricks repo after the testing is complete. We have additional resources as presented on how you go about doing that. Again, this is just, once you guys have it, you can see it. There's the workspace is easily accessible in Databricks. Home is where your local directory is going to be, which would point to this particular location where you can start creating your notebooks. Once that is done, this is my org workspace. I can move it and have all of my files sit here for the org folders. Before I close out on the workspace, I just want to make sure that we hit this point home, as the data is only permitted in Workbench and Data Catalog. So following this particular practice of storing code in Workspace, structured data in Data Catalog, semi-structured or unstructured data in Workbench, which points to S3 location, it's going to keep everything clean and organized for you. After workspace, let's get into what catalog actually means. Catalog is the location where you organizes the schemas and the tables that you have. And Catalog Explorer, which I'm going to show you in a bit, picture of it, it actually lets you see all the information about the schema and the details about it. It kind of gives you an overview about the tables, column information, sample data, and all that good stuff. The CDR catalog is actually a two-tier organization which has data schemas or the databases and tables. This architecture has been standardized so that, but it makes that you can't have subfolders under them. Our current CDR has 500 schemas and hundreds and thousands of tables that are under it. Each org, once it gets onboarded, is assigned a single schema for their own use. And access to the schema is based on your data user agreements permissions. Now, always also know that SAS connects to a different S3 than the CDR catalog. The way you can access the catalog once you're in Databricks is again through this left navigation window. You have catalog. Click on that. It takes a while to refresh this catalog explorer, and then you can go to the schema and you'll see all the tables which are under this one. Before I go further, The reason it takes a little bit of time to get the schemas is that it's running, runs some commands to say, sure, get schemas and stuff like that. And it has to do that by getting attached to our compute. So let's talk about compute clusters. There are 3 different compute clusters that we have. This is an all-purpose cluster, jobs, and SQL warehouse clusters. The clusters that we have currently are all-purpose clusters. They are designed and implemented so that users can run code interactively for both development and testing purposes. The best practice is, given that we have large amount of data out there, it's best to take a subset of this data onto these all-purpose clusters and not use the full data set to run your analysis, just to create your program. Teams have 2 all-purpose clusters by default. One is designed to be used when you're programming in R and all the other programming languages. And the other has been designed specifically only for Python and SQL and has limited resources and is shared by the entire team. And that's the reason why we also suggest that rather than downloading the entire data set, work with a subset of the data. Now, all that said and done, once you have your notebooks developed, tested, you can actually use job clusters to run which are used to run scheduled jobs, batch processing, and these are optimized clusters. They are allowed to use more resources than your all-purpose clusters, so you can do more resource-intensive tasks. These clusters are not shared with any other jobs, so when you spin up and try to process your job, 100% of the resources of that clusters are used to execute your task alone. Now, SAS to Databricks connection connects to a SQL warehouse compute, and it is designed only to support SQL queries. It's also designed in such a way that you can do more resource-intensive tasks. Like if you want to do a large-scale data analysis using SQL queries, you can do that. Cluster details will show you what the cluster configuration looks like. It lets you know the runtime and resources that are allotted. Each cluster has a certain amount of resources, and you're going to share that with your team members. So there's a lot of load balancing that goes on. So just be cognizant of when things are slowing down and stuff like that. It could be that all compute clusters are being used by multiple members. The notebook, in a picture here, you can see that there's a notebook tab that shows that, okay, on this cluster, there are 5 notebooks that are running. The libraries tab will show you what libraries have been installed on these clusters and can be used, so you don't have to install them again for your own session. The event log will show what's happening on the cluster, how it's being used, and all that stuff. On top of that, the way you want to get to the compute cluster is through this navigation tab here. There's compute, and it pulls up the list, and you can select the cluster that you have access to and you're interested in looking at it. Most of the data analysis or data science, you don't have to worry too much about this thing. It's more on the DevOps side, but it helps you to know what to look for. Like it tells you what's Databricks runtime version is installed, what kind of worker nodes have been given to you. Like it kind of gives you a quick calculation, like, oh, okay, this is the amount of resources that I have to do. Once you start working with it, you will know how big of this cluster is, how much pressure it can take, or load testing it can take. That's it. Let's get into SQL dashboards. Now, to get to the SQL dashboards, you can easily go to the SQL section of this navigation window, and there's dashboards. There is a data tab here, and there is a canvas. On the data tab, you can write a query to pull the exact data set that you want to visually analyze. And you can set up all of your visualization here and analyze your data and present this. Just remember, this gets connected to the SQL warehouse cluster that we talked about. With the remaining time, I wanted to take the majority of the remaining time to focus on notebooks, because notebooks are central to Databricks. They support multiple programming languages, as we discussed, Python, R, SQL, and Scala. And within this notebook, you can actually have a markdown text to document what you're going to do and to present it. Kind of reads like a story. And then you can write your code, you can mix code from different programming languages. And give me 1 second, I'm extremely sorry about this. Pardon me for 1 second. Yes. And my apologies for that. Right. So when you mix your code, you can write code in different programming languages. You can create visualizations. All of that will come together to present a nice story on what you're doing with your notebook. It becomes easier to share with multiple team members who can collaborate on it. And then once you have everything ready, tested, users can comment on it. All of that. After you finish your task, you can schedule these notebooks as jobs, or you can execute. And just as you see, I'm presenting the notebook here. You can actually do a presentation also using the notebooks to your stakeholders. Stuff that you can do with notebook, as we just talked about, you can write your code. This is, as you see, I chose Python as my default programming language, and I wrote some code to transform the New York City's crash data. Once that is done, it will show you the data. There's a nice little output that comes up here that says, okay, I've finished everything, and this is what you contain. You click on this drop down, it will show you all the columns with the data types, which is a nice little way to see whether all of your transformations are done properly or if it needs to change. And then the table shows the output once I hit this because of this display statement. And within this, I can also create my graph so that I can analyze whether things are looking correct or not. Now, after all this thing is done, once you are completed with your notebook development and you're completed testing all of those things, let's say you want to share this with non-technical stakeholders. You can actually do that by creating a dashboard. This dashboard gets created from a view of the notebook that we just saw, and it pulls in the table, it pulls in the graphs. Any other graphs that you want to add, you can do that, and it becomes like this nice interactive dashboard that you can present, or you can actually use it as a reporting tool. With that said, strategies around the notebooks. Given that notebooks does a lot of these things, it's important that you design it in such a way that it's easy to debug your processes, understand the steps that are being done. So the way we think about it is, think of the notebook like an essay. Each command cell that you have in the notebook should have one single sentence. Like in my case, I did one transformation and I displayed the data, something like that. Just like a paragraph in an essay, have a topic sentence documenting what we want to do, what is being done here, and that should be included as part of notebooks. You can actually combine multiple notebooks to run an entire process, and multiple notebooks can be chained to run different stages of your analysis. So splitting it apart each step or each code block that you want to do into different notebooks, and each of that code block into separate command cells with one command per cell makes it easier to collaborate on it, to understand what's going on. So that's usually how it's recommended that we put these notebooks together. One thing that I would highly suggest is the conclusion or the end of the notebook. Any intermediate files or intermediate tables that you create, just make sure that it's cleaned up. It's no longer necessary by removing those files or deleting the intermediate tables. The other thing, if any of your programmers are there, interesting thing that you can do is if you have written your notebook and you want to debug it, instead of just running it, you have a debug cell option where you can actually set up these breakpoints. And once you step through the code, Databricks automatically pulls in the variables on what's happening. So for an example here, I'm just trying to loop through all the tables that are there in a particular schema. As I loop through it, the list gets created and shows the list. And when I'm looping through each of that table, it shows which table I'm actually accessing at that point of time. Simple enough. And at the same time, it's effective to do your debug rather than, wait to run this thing and look at a bunch of print statements or go through the logs. Helpful to do active development, in my opinion. So I just wanted to present that also as an option. Workflows. We talked about all the notebooks, the computes, and everything. So putting workflows are a place where you can automate any of the workflows. Let's say you put all your notebooks together, and this is a process that you want to run on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis. So rather than manually doing that, you can actually create a workflow job and automatically schedule these processes. Usually when you're doing an ETL process, new data might come in every month and you want to analyze it or transform the data. Avoid model drifting and all of those things. So you want to train your model on a quarterly basis, or you want to generate your reports on a weekly basis to see what's happening with your usage statistics, and all of that can be scheduled as jobs. And once you schedule these jobs and have set triggers on them, it automatically runs it, and you'll have your outputs ready. We can run notebooks, but there are other options also, like running Python codes. But one thing that we want to make sure is that workflow should run on jobs cluster, as I alluded to it earlier. Once you run it on a job cluster, it's a dedicated resources for your job, and you can use 100% of those resources to do what you want to do. An example is you can go to the workflow, set up here multiple tasks. As here you can see 2 tasks, and it runs 2 separate notebooks. Schedule, there's no trigger here, so you can actually manually run it here. If you have a scheduled trigger, like whether to run monthly, daily, weekly, or a new file comes in and it should automatically run this, you can set it all up here. The computes are set up and it runs on its own. And you can actually go to this job runs part and look at what's going on with your jobs. Or there are multiple ways you can get to and see how each one executed. Now, with all of that done, there are a lot of, for libraries. Databricks comes with a lot of pre-installed libraries. You can do machine learning, you can do data manipulations, and visualization, as you've seen. All of these can be done with all the functions packages that come as part of Databricks. However, there will be cases when you want to, some library out there that does something that you want to do. Databricks also supports adding these libraries. You can add them from PyPy server for Python packages, from Grand repository for R, and you can do that. No questions asked. You can actually install these libraries by you can do pip install, okay, Python, or install R libraries. Any libraries that are outside of the PyPy server repo or CRAN will need a DAR to be submitted so that these libraries can be added to your cluster. Having these libraries and using libraries will always help to share your code tools and making sure that ensuring everyone will have access to these libraries. And that is all I had to present. And these are some references back to the stuff that I used to create this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will go ahead and take back over screen sharing. Okay, so at this point, we do have 5 minutes. We have a few questions in the chat. Let's go through a couple of them. I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them, but we can at least get a couple of them answered. So the first couple of questions would be, are these replacing, so this was from Jonathan's presentation, are these replacing the assessment IKeys and provider IKeys? And is the access only on the Databricks side, or does it change access within SAS too?
Yes, and I can answer that question. So the new schemas do replace the assessment IKeys and provider IKeys schemas or tables that were previously available. Those ETL processes will be decommissioned pretty soon. They're not really being refreshed at this point. So I cannot speak exactly to the SAS side as far as how people were accessing it. What I can say is that we did create new SAS via CAS libs, which can access the exact same data sets that are available within Databricks. So I don't know how people were accessing it before, because I know there's a lot of different tools and methodologies for being able to essentially access the previous schemas that were available. But if you had accessed HHA data previously via SAS using the IKeys HHA schema, that would have been like the CAS lib that would have been utilized. Basically, you just take off the schema portion, so it's just IKeys HHA, and that points to the exact same data set that is currently available in Databricks. I'm not entirely familiar with all of the different methods of being able to access data, so I will simply say that the data is available. And if you have a question as to how to access it, I think there was like the second or the third slide had an email that you can reach out to, and we'll make sure that information gets socialized.
Jonathan, are you okay to answer one more before we wrap up?
Of course.
Okay. What is the process for getting these schemas added to your state's DUA? Remember, state agency DUA do not always go through EPI.
That is one thing I cannot speak to. There was another team that was working through the actual access of how to get people onboarded into utilizing the new schemas, and I unfortunately don't have a lot of insight into that. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question.
That is okay. And then our last one today would be, what is the official effective date for the IKeys data available in the CDR?
It's available now. The new S&C schemas that would be coming, the IKeys survey, IKeys enforcement, those will be by the end of December. But everything that was listed as currently available, it's currently available.
Okay, cool. And I'm sorry, the new, which ones were those? I'm just taking notes while you're answering these.
So it was on the third slide. It indicated that there was going to be new schemas called IKeys survey, IKeys enforcement. There's like 6 or 7. Those will be available before the end of December. And okay, and there's actually a question regarding hospice. Hospice is currently available still through assessment IKEys, and it will still be available through assessment IKEys until early in 2025, when it will get its own schema as well. But currently that one is still pulled from the legacy keys servers, so it is still available through assessment_IKeys.
All right. Thank you so much, Don.
You're
So
welcome.
we are out of time at this point. It is now 2 o'clock. But thank you so much to everyone who joined us for our final CCSQ Data Analytics Town Hall of the year. We will see you back in January. So as just a reminder, the recording, slide content, and Q&A will be available in Portal shortly, so keep an eye out there. And then we have maintenance January 3rd, right after the new year, and then our next town hall will be January 22nd. So I will see you back here then. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.